Hello, I just finished reading a new book that I loved so much. I had such a fantastic time reading it. I'm really excited to discuss it. Now, it has been a few years since author Torrey Peters' breakout debut novel, Detransition Baby, and many of this book's fans, like me, had been eagerly awaiting a follow-up, and it is here. Stag Dance. Now, firstly, this has such a great cover. I love this image of all of the deer and stags crowded together, and this little detail of a pink ribbon in one of their antlers, and also how the inside cover is all hot pink. But this book made me feel so much and think about many different things in a complex and new way. And there are so many superlatives that I would give to this book. I found it smart and joyful, but also scary and sexy and challenging and weird and messy in the best possible way. And it is composed of 3 short stories and a novella, and I know that some will probably be disappointed that it's not a full novel, but I think the imaginative breadth of these stories is so impressive, and they range wildly in subject matter and style, but they all present different ways of considering gender and trans experience. So there's a short story which is kind of a dystopian tale about a pandemic which occurs, and it moves backwards and forwards in time, and everyone is brought to this state where they need to make a conscious choice about what their gender is. And there's a short story which is somewhat more contemporary set, which is in a boarding school where a very popular guy struggles and wrestles with his attraction towards his roommate and using his roommate's soft body, but also how there are so many demonstrations of masculinity within this boarding school. And there is a short story that takes place in Las Vegas where a group of cross-dressers and trans women meet for this wild week on the strip, and a vulnerable individual is forced to make a very difficult decision. And in the novella, the titular novella, Stag Dance, is set amongst a group of lumberjacks in this very removed area where all of their simmering desire comes out in this strange ritual that they perform, this stag dance that they have, and following a protagonist who is really wrestling with his identity and how he inhabits his body. And I found it so fascinating how these different stories look at beauty and conceptions of beauty and what we consider beautiful and what we desire, and how those two things aren't always the same thing. And so, like in Stag Dance, how the protagonist and narrator, he has this very large and muscular and hairy body, and he's described as having very rough features in his face, but he wants to be pretty, and he wants to be so in the Stag Dance there are these signifiers that if you want to be courted, there's a little triangle that you wear around your waist, and how these stories explore these different signifiers as ways of expressing ourselves and our gender and our sexuality, and how it explores all of these throughout the many different stories, but also how they look at community and relationships and friendships and sisterhood, and how there can be a lot of support and nurturing within these relationships, but also that there can be a lot of backstabbing and bitchiness within them as well. And so looking at the full range of experience within all these many different communities. And I think it's really striking how these stories show that none of us inhabit pure masculinity or femininity, but we all experience different shades of these, and that these change over time. But they also probe the blurred lines between being cis and trans, and asks whether these lines even exist. And a lot of these issues can be really difficult to discuss, but Torrey Peters gets into the real nuance of individual experience, and I admire the way that she doesn't feel the need to sanitize the complexity of this experience or present a virtuous example of queer life. There are desires and ways of inhabiting our bodies which some of us can only admit online or within certain contexts, but when these leak into reality, these desires then morph and change, and these stories are a testament to that. And they show how hierarchies develop based on relative beauty and power within different groups, especially within marginalized communities. I found it very relatable as well, the vulnerability of this experience as some of these characters are entering into new groups and looking to forge connections and relationships with like-minded people, but while still trying to figure yourself out and what you want and how disorientating and frightening this is. And also being aware that there are some in these groups who would take advantage of naive newcomers. And I think it's important that this fiction doesn't shrink from this darkness, but confronts it and presents it in a way which feels celebratory. And I also found these stories frequently very funny. So I think this is absolutely fantastic. I think it is queer excellence, and I just loved reading it so much. So if you're interested in reading this now, if you're a fan of Detransition Baby, or if you've never read Torrey Peters before, I would love to hear about that in the comments below. Or if you have read Stag Dance now, what do you think of it? What is your favorite story in this collection? I think probably my favorite is the Chaser, the one set in the boarding school, but all of them are so good. I mean, maybe Stag Dance goes on a bit too long, but I loved how towards the end it became more of like a fable or a fairy tale, and I thought that was such a great thing about it as well. So I know I'll want to revisit some of these stories again, and I'm so looking forward to whatever Torrey Peters publishes next. But I hope you're doing well and reading good things, and I will speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.